Scalpel in hand, magnifying glass to her eye, crick in her neck. One flake of paint at a time. That's how Pinin Brambilla Barcelon worked for almost 20 years, scraping years of grime off Da Vinci's Last Supper. This work was so demanding and slow that she suffered damage to her vision and had chronic muscle aches. In a day's work, she might finish an area barely bigger than a bottle cap. But why would Barcelon work so hard and sacrifice so much to maintain an old painting? What is it about art that makes us care so much? And how do we go about preserving it? Hi, I'm Sarah Urist Green, and this is Crash Course Art History. Art is a bit like a time capsule. It stores values, ideas, stories, and traditions of people who came before us. But the materials we use to create art, like canvas, paint, and even stone, don't last forever on their own. It takes hard work and coordination to keep works as close as possible to their original condition. We call that work preservation, and it's getting harder. Climate change has led to more frequent and extreme natural disasters like flooding, tornadoes, and hurricanes, which complicate preservation efforts. Because of climate change, we're at risk of losing the world's oldest known cave painting on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. This ancient artwork depicts human handprints on the cave's natural limestone walls. Unfortunately, limestone deteriorates really easy when exposed to salt, which sneaks into the tiny holes of the walls and crystallizes, breaking up the rock. And long droughts combined with heavy rainfalls have sped up this process. Larger architectural wonders are also being affected. Egypt's climate is warming at twice the rate of the rest of the world, and that's put many of its cultural sites at risk, like the 15th century citadel of Qaitbay in Alexandria, which preservationists are racing to protect from rising sea levels. We can see how preservationists sometimes even risk their own safety to protect artworks. And it's thanks to those tireless efforts that we've been able to learn more about the past, discovering artists and stories previously unknown to history. That's what happened with this 1568 painting of Last Supper. If it looks familiar, it's because it was influenced by Leonardo da Vinci's famous work. But this one isn't a copy. It has its own story to tell. It was created by an Italian nun named Plautilla Nelli, who was self-taught and ran an artist workshop for women out of her convent. The life-size painting shows remarkably realistic-looking people, especially considering women were rarely allowed to practice figure drawing with live models, a foundational exercise for artists learning to represent natural-looking bodies. But Nelli's status as a nun allowed her the freedom to paint at a time when artists were almost exclusively male. Unlike Da Vinci's work, and that of other male artists of the Italian Renaissance, Nelli's painting was overlooked for centuries. It hung in the artist's own convent before being rolled up and placed in storage in the 19th century, where it stayed for decades. Its paint was flaking off, its colors faded, until in 1939 it underwent the process of restoration, which, exactly like it sounds, works to restore damaged artworks as closely as possible to their original form. Today, the work is on public display for the first time, alongside other masterpieces. And the stories it's revealed has given us new insight into how female painters worked during the Renaissance. Analysis has shown that Nelli likely collaborated with at least 8 other nuns, also artists, to make her painting. And without the work of the team who uncovered it, Nelli and her fellow nuns' accomplishments might have been lost forever. Behind the scenes, art restoration is not only fun to watch for hours on YouTube, it's complicated and takes some serious skill to pull off. Professionals who do this study for years and have advanced degrees. So when someone without that skill attempts a restoration, the results can have unintended consequences. Let's head to the drawing board. In 2012, 82-year-old Cecilia Jimenez attempted to restore a damaged fresco at her church in Borja, Spain. The piece, Ecce Homo, or Behold the Man, was created around 1930 by the Spanish painter Elias Garcia Martinez. The work had been deteriorating for years and was in dire need of restoration. So Jimenez attempted to fix the flaking fresco. She busted out her paintbrushes and created this. It's still unclear if Jimenez had permission to attempt her restoration. And even though the local counselor of arts and culture defended her act as good-intentioned, it received mostly one-star reviews. That is, until the internet caught wind. Online, Ecce Homo was ridiculed mercilessly and memed endlessly. With all that viral attention, people from across the world began traveling to Jimenez's village to see the painting in person. In a surprising turn of events, her work revitalized Borja's tourist economy and helped raise enough money to establish an arts center celebrating the fresco in both its original and restored form. Ah, the internet. Sometimes it does good things. Jimenez's restoration might have led to some great memes and even benefited her community in the end. But it also goes to show how much technical skill and expertise is required for successful restoration. Behold the Man was painted directly on a wall, in a process called fresco secco, which, to be fair to Jimenez, is notoriously hard to restore. But I can of course understand her wish to save the piece. When we lose art to disaster, climate change, war, or just the ravages of time, we also lose a piece of human history. Not just the building or painting itself, but everything the artwork can tell us about each other and ourselves. It's this desire to preserve history for the future that drives efforts around the world to protect famous and not so famous works. When we strive to protect art from future damage, it's called conservation. Planned conservation is kind of like wearing a bike helmet. It provides a preventative defense against bodily or canvasly harm, like lining the back of a fragile painting or keeping a drawing away from sunlight so it doesn't fade. This helps ensure that art with historical, scientific, religious, or social value is preserved. These irreplaceable aspects of art or architecture are a part of what we call our cultural heritage, or the stuff that enough people can agree we should try to save. To prove that an artwork meets the requirements as a work of cultural heritage, conservators can submit a statement of significance to their local governing board. The documents usually contain a list of the work's aesthetic, historic, scientific, social, or spiritual value. And while the qualifications vary with organizations around the world, most agree that it applies to ideas and traditions that last across generations. And of course, art isn't always an individual painting or sculpture. Sometimes it's a whole building or an entire village. Enter UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, which was created in 1945 to help rebuild global cultures after World War II. Today, UNESCO sets the international standard for conserving what we call World Heritage Sites. To qualify, a location has to meet at least one of 10 criteria. Like, is the site a masterpiece of human genius? Or does it bear a unique testimony to a cultural tradition? These criteria aim to pin down those often intangible values that make art matter to us. Take the city of Angkor in Cambodia, which was the central location of the 9th century Khmer Empire. The most famous temple at the site is Angkor Wat, a massive 12th century complex that's filled with breathtaking carvings, elaborate architecture, and masterful sculptures. And when I say massive, I mean it. The site covers an area about half as big as New York City. Meeting just one of the UNESCO criteria is enough to get you on their list. But Angkor meets 4. And that's saying something, because the places that meet these tough criteria are few and far between. In fact, Angkor is one of fewer than 1,200 UNESCO sites in the world today. But conservation can be complicated, and sometimes preserving the past bumps up against the realities of people in the present. Like, since Angkor Wat's UNESCO designation, the Cambodian government has been evicting people who live near the site or who have started businesses that cater to tourists there. There's also a risk that tourist development could harm conservation efforts. But while the government claims these relocations are voluntary, locals say they're being forced out of their homes and losing their livelihoods. So there's a really delicate balance between conserving cultural heritage and protecting people in the present. At the end of the day, preservation, restoration, and conservation efforts are as nuanced, diverse, and complicated as art and history. They represent a desire to deepen the human story, keeping alive the best chapters, and discovering new ones along the way. But that's a tall order, and it poses just as many questions as it answers. Luckily, there's no shortage of people willing to keep the conservation conversation going strong. In our next, and I'm sad to say final episode, we'll talk about the ways technology has changed and continues to change the ways we think about art. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course Art History, which was filmed at the Indianapolis Museum of Art at Newfields and was made with the help of all of these exemplary people. If you want to help keep Crash Course free for everyone forever, you can join our community on Patreon.